All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager class Heatwave. And yeah, I talked about in my last video how like almost all of the Voyagers for Age of the Primes so far had been real winners, and this guy unfortunately is a little bit of a disappointment. He's not terrible. He really holds a few too many artifacts of just being a remold of a previous figure, which is kind of strange because when you look at the body type of like this mold in general, it was used for Legacy Bulkhead and then Breakdown in the Doom and Destruction pack, and now it's being used for him. But if you look at the body type for this figure, it really does kind of feel like it should have been designed to be Heatwave from the start with like the big boxy chest and all that. But it just definitely drips of like, oh, this is kind of like a retool of a previous figure, and it has just a few too many artifacts of that. Like, he's got this weird little panel over the top here, which has these holes in it, which honestly, I'm not even sure what these are for because like they weren't used as like pinholes in either Bulkhead or Breakdown. So like, I'm not sure what the point of that is, but it just kind of like awkwardly drapes over here. I mean, it does tab in, like this is how it's supposed to be, but I don't know. I'm not in love with it. And then like as a fire truck, like you'd want him to be a bit more solid back here with the ladder on top rather than, the ladder replacing the whole like weird canopy thing that they had. And he's got like the like iron or whatever, the steel plating down here, which again, could maybe work if it was a little bit higher, but I don't know. I'm not in love with the vehicle mode, basically. I just think it looks a little bit cobbled together and not really as filled out as, like, I feel like a fire truck ought to be. But the new detailing on the front here is nice. It does make it look like that, original Heatwave toy with, like, the big kind of rounded windshield and then the grill and then these bits, which on the original toy ended up being his hands, which they don't on this figure. They just stay on the chest, which we'll talk about. But yeah, he rolls okay. I feel like he doesn't quite stay as firmly together as my other version of this mold does, but whatever. And he's got his two like energon weapons here with this little blaster and this energon axe here, which in terms of storage, you are supposed to just kind of use these tabs and tab them into the ladder here, which I think looks a little bit silly. It's really unfortunate that they couldn't find a way to get those to like store on the inside here like they did with the other versions, which again, like on Breakdown and Bulkhead, like that whole section is covered up, so it really works, whereas on him, they'd still be visible. So, I don't like that really, but that's where they're supposed to go. The ladder is also a little bit, I mean, I get it because they're trying to bridge the gap between like, the rescue bots cartoony, kitty aesthetic and like a more generation style figure, but the ladder does feel a little bit like absurdly wide to scale with this type of vehicle, but whatever, I can live with that. But yeah, I'm just not overly in love with the vehicle mode. It looks nice from the front, but when you look at it from any other angle, it's just like, woof, there's a lot going on back here that does not feel super aesthetically intentional. But in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, and, they scale relatively well. I guess he's maybe a little bit smaller than he ought to be, but, they work relatively well. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime, so you can see what he looks like with another Voyager truck there. And then with, Classics or Universe Inferno, who's got some edits that I gave to him to make him have a ladder, but it doesn't really matter for this video. Just so you can see what he looks like with a few similar trucks here. I wanted to show him off with another fire truck there, just so you can see, like, he really should be, like, filled out with this section with the ladder on top, which I don't know. I'd have to look at it again, but I feel like the original Heatwave toy was like, mostly had like the whole back section filled out, but he's just not nearly as convincing of a fire truck, I would say. Here he is with Breakdown, so you can see the other version of this mold that I have. Just so you can see it's like it's just a little bit more filled out back here because he's got like the canopy section, and I feel like I would have rather seen them resculpt the canopy to be like a little bit more just like regular trucky rather than like the canvas texture that it had, and then had the ladder on top of that. But I don't know, maybe it just didn't really fit in the budget. but it is a little bit disappointing to have this figure the way that it is, because it definitely feels like he's just missing a big chunk from the back there, but whatever. And then here he is with the other two updated Rescue Bots characters that I have. Hopefully we'll get Boulder and Blades. Those are like the main four that you'd want, or these two and those two. I'm assuming that we'll be getting them at some point. I'm not sure if they're going to be reusing like particular molds. I hope that they don't just like reuse the Vortex mold to be Blades. That would be kind of disappointing, but either way, that's what he looks like with the two of them. I think they look decent together. But yeah, to get onto transformation, obviously we'll just take off the weapons and put them off to the side. The ladder also does parts form. I was kind of thinking that this would, stay attached, but it doesn't. You kind of have to like unfold the feet, because the feet actually slot over these little tabs here, and then you can untab this and it just tabs into these pieces on the thigh there. And we'll just put that off to the side for now. Just like every other version, we'll just unfold the feet here. I find that this bit here it sometimes gets kind of stuck in there. Then we can take the gas cans here and just untab them there, and then split the legs, untab the gas cans from the legs themselves, and then straighten them out. And then take these pieces, fold them open, take the gas cans on the ball joint there, rotate them around to the inside of the legs, and just close that back up. Just like that. Then what do we want to do? We want to take this whole section, and we'll untab from the back there. You kind of rotate it around so it clicks into place. Take this piece, rotate that down so it sits like that. Then we take the entire front section here and just untab it like that to get the arms out. Rotate them down. Take this panel here, and again, it gets a little bit more stuck than my breakdown does, but you have to really make sure the head is straightened out so it can actually get past that and tab into place. And then you can take the whole head panel and then rotate that up like that. Then we want to take this little panel here that the like waist section was tabbed into, and just rotate it up. This is like previously what had the like wheels on it, the like fake extra wheels on Bulkhead and Breakdown. So you want to make sure that's out of the way. So you can take the arms here and untab them. You kind of have to do this at once and like tab that, like bring these up on the armatures, and then bring the body down so it kind of clicks into place, and then you can tab these in. Again, it kind of has to happen in tandem here, but so you can just tab those in like that, then take the body, and then this piece here will clip over that section on the waist, and just click the head up a little bit if it hasn't kind of already. And then, yeah, we want this panel to sit out kind of at an angle so that when you take this bit and rotate it down, it'll tab into that. And there we have Heatwave in his robot mode. And yeah, while I've got my grievances about the vehicle mode, the robot mode, however, I think looks really, really nice. And again, you can kind of see what I'm saying, where like with the big kind of chunky boxy proportions, it sort of feels like this is what this mold should have been designed to be from the get-go, which is a shame that they didn't do him first, because then maybe the sort of suboptimal repaints as Bulkhead and Breakdown would have had some weird artifacts of him rather than the other way around. Because, like, again, it does really feel like this was designed to be Heatwave, and then they just did him last. And unfortunately, that means that, like, with the budget, he just ended up having some just weird holdovers from those previous figures. But yeah, no, he looks really good. Now, granted, he he keeps the the fake sort of fists here on the front, and then has like fake little headlights on his arms, which is a bit of cheating. It's, if you didn't want him to have huge hands like he does in Rescue Bots, there was really no way that these were going to actually become the arms, unfortunately. At first, I thought that there was like some paint mishap here where these are asymmetrical, even though it's the same sculpted detail, but that's just like, part of Heatwave's design, is that on the original he did have that, like, asymmetry, but it was also asymmetrical sculpting, so it's a little weird being the same sculpting but painted differently, but it works pretty well. I do like his head sculpt. It's maybe like slightly too cartoony for my taste. Like, I do wish that they had generationified him up just a little bit to fit in with other guys, but it works pretty well. He's got the fireman hat thing going on. It's kind of hard to see with the light piping in there, but he actually does have sculpted eyes underneath the visor there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you can definitely see it there. which is yeah, a really nice touch. But yeah, it's maybe slightly more cartoony than I'd like it to be, but either way, I think it's a really nice looking head sculpt there. In terms of articulation, head's on a ball joint, so it can rotate around, look up and down a little bit, doesn't really get a ton of wiggle. The shoulders can rotate around, go out to the side. This one doesn't really stay tabbed in as much as I'd like it to, but it's not too bad. He's got thigh swivel, bicep swivel. He's got a nice deep elbow bend for transformation there. Wrist swivel, waist swivel. Hips can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got a internal thigh swivel there, like a degree or two over 90 degrees of bend at the knee. The feet can tilt forward and back a little bit and then tilt out to the side. Then you can also adjust the toe and the heel separately. Now, in terms of his accessories here, obviously we can give him the ladder. You could, I guess, it's got this flip out peg. You could have him hold it as a shield, but it's so ridiculous to have a shield that is like made up almost entirely of gaps. So I just leave it on his back. You want to rotate it up this way so that these two little tabs at the toes hooked over in vehicle mode are facing up, because then when you tab it in, they'll kind of like slot in between these hinges and keep it from just like rotating around. Because if you had it like this, then nothing keeps it from kind of just going all over the place, where it stays pretty decently well just like that, and kind of completes the look of the robot mode there. And then in terms of his like little energon weapons, obviously you can have him hold the blaster there, hold the axe. The axe is a little bit silly and small. I sort of wish that they had found some way to maybe do it like more of an Optimus Prime style axe, where it kind of hooks over his fist and sticks straight out of his arm, but it's fine. Differentiate them a little bit, I guess. But yeah, he looks decent with those. In terms of storage, you can just use those same tab connections on the ladder that he used in vehicle mode, and that works decently well, even though they do stick out a little bit. It's a little, I sort of wish that this one had the tab on the top so it can at least stay a little bit clean. And same thing with the axe, is like, oh, if that were just on the side, it would be a little bit cleaner, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswept, just so you can see what he looks like with an average size deluxe there. Here he is for an average Voyager class comparison with Earthrise Optimus Prime, and they look pretty decent together. Just for posterity's sake, here he is again with Inferno, again with my edits on there. Here he is again with Breakdown, just so you can see. Again, just like the body type, I think just suits Heatwave a lot better, whereas like Breakdown didn't really look like this in the Transformers Prime cartoon. But you can see all the stuff that's different, all the same. The shoulder chunks are different, though everything below on the arms is the same. The thighs are different, which again were resculpted so that he would have those like tabs on the back for the ladder to tab into. The lower legs and feet appear to be the same. Obviously, the chest and the head are different. And then most of the like internal structure things are the same. Like this panel that the bit attaches to is the same one, although the one that the little smaller panel is different because it doesn't have like the hinge joints there for the wheels anymore. But that's hardly super relevant. But yeah, I just feel like he wears it a little bit better, at least in robot mode, whereas both the other versions wear it better in vehicle mode, even if it's not the vehicle that those characters should really be. Again, just a little weird. I feel like this mold hasn't really found a super solid home yet. It just sort of feels like, what was this supposed to be ever? Because the character that it feels like it's supposed to be has so many artifacts of the characters that used it before, which doesn't really feel like it suits either of them. I don't know. I could go on about that, but that's what the two of them look like together. And then last but not least, here he is with Chase and Medics, so you can see how our Rescue Bots team is coming so far. And yeah, no, it's really nice to get kind of like generation styles versions of these characters. Again, like I feel like he obviously doesn't really do a Medicsy head from the toy line because he's just using the crosscut. I don't know what head that was supposed to be. It was a few different things, but and then his is like maybe again it's kind of more in line with his, where it's like slightly more like cartoony than I'd like it to be, but I feel like he gets the balance a little bit better, whereas his a little bit too cartoony. But I can deal with either of them, honestly. Like, they do look more accurate to how they looked in the show for that reason. So it's better than like the super pushed into generation style, like the knockout head was, for example. Even though the regular prime knockout head would have fit just fine in generation style, whatever. It's a whole conversation about like how generationified these figures should be. Obviously there's a lot of room for individual preference in there, but whatever. But yeah, that's what he looks like with them. And yeah, he's an okay figure. I'd say he's solidly the worst Voyager that we've gotten out of Age of Prime so far. But to be fair, the other ones have all been have been real winners. And he's got like the things that are like the most of the torso is really hollow, which because he's got this like bigger, clearer windshield, you can kind of see it from more angles, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I don't know. In robot mode, I would say that Heatwave definitely wears this mold the best, but the vehicle mode is it's just kind of disappointing, unfortunately. It just doesn't feel like quite there. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager class Heatwave.